Parker. I'm a co-founder of LiquidText and handle the marketing activities here. We're going to hear a demonstration today and Q&A of LiquidText with Craig Tashman, our founder and CEO. And with that said, let me turn it over to Craig and let him to take off. Take care.
Excellent. We just say hi to everyone here. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Stephen. And thank you all so much for coming. As Stephen said, I'm Craig Tashman, founder and CEO of LiquidText, talking to you today from the fine state of New York over in the US. And first of all, we really appreciate all you guys coming today. So as Stephen said, what we're going to do today is I'm going to give a very quick, like 1 or 2 minute background on LiquidText. Then we're going to go into a demo. I'm going to walk you through a little bit about one of our favorite use cases of how to use the app. And then we're going to go on and take some questions. So with that, let me stop the video, go back over to our little slide deck, and we'll begin. So here we are. So what is LiquidText about? Well, LiquidText kind of comes from the question of, we know computers help us compose great content. We know computers help us find great content. But what about in the middle? How do computers help us understand, digest, make sense of content? And the problem is, in a lot of ways, they don't, right? It turns out that about 80% of knowledge workers and similar numbers of students consistently prefer to use paper for their active reading rather than digital. And so why is that? Well, it turns out that in a lot of ways, the way that we've made reading work on computers has been by kind of just taking paper and trying to replicate it. And what ends up happening is we've ended up inheriting the limitations of paper without really inheriting the things that make it work, without inheriting its benefits. LiquidText is different though. With LiquidText, we didn't start from trying to replicate paper. It actually came out of my doctoral thesis at Georgia Tech. We started by researching how people think, how people read, what you need when you're doing active reading, and we built an experience around that. 4 years of research, 2 peer-reviewed papers, and of course, that very long doctoral dissertation. So the goal then that we have is to help you find your information faster, take better, more meaningful, more usable notes, and to discover connections and insights that you'd otherwise miss. That's our objective with LiquidText. And thankfully, that's what people generally tell us they get out of it. So of course, we're available on PC, Mac, and iPad. We've had, we've been written up in some nice places, gotten some great feedback, certainly including many verticals, including this example from Law 360. But the most interesting thing about it is the app itself. So rather than talking about the story, let's now go into the fun part. Let's do a demo. And so for the demo, we're actually going to have a real live demo that I'm going to be doing for you here on my iPad. We'll go over to LiquidText. And I know some of you guys are already active LiquidText users. Some haven't actually downloaded the app yet. So where we are here is this is when you first open LiquidText. This is the home screen where you can see all the different projects that you have in the system. So we're going to go to our McCaffrey stem cell case project here, right? And this is the LiquidText editor screen. On the left, we have our document, and you can have all kinds of many different documents here. On the right, we have our workspace where we can take our notes, and we'll be talking about those in a lot more detail in a moment. Over here, we have our little document sidebar. This is where we can see all the different documents that are involved in the current project. And on the right, we have our workspace sidebar, but we're not going to be using that as much for this. On the top, of course, we have our inking tools, our find tool, and in case anyone doesn't know about it, our help system, where we have little demo videos showing how to do all the major functions in the app. We also have a way for you to contact our technical support. All kinds of different options for visualization and layout here. And of course, export, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. Now, to start with, to demonstrate LiquidText, I want to give you guys a little story. So I want you to imagine that you're an attorney representing a client who just had a new stem cell procedure done on her hip to try to relieve her arthritis. But it turned out the stem cell procedure didn't work. Instead of relieving her arthritis, she just had a couple days of inflammation and no improvement. And the client is saying the surgeon must have done something wrong. But the surgeon is claiming that your client just wasn't a very good candidate for the procedure. So we need to go through and try to figure out what's going on here. So I'm going to start by going over on the left side the different documents here. You see I've organized my documents into folders. And we're going to start with under regulatory bodies, American Stem Cell Association best practices. So let's start by trying to understand, was our client actually a good candidate for this procedure? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the workspace and I'm going to make a little text box, right? And I'll say, was our client a good candidate? It's a good question. We'll tag that in red to help us find it later. And now as I go through the paper or the ASCA guidelines, I scroll down a little bit and I notice under medical prerequisites, it says most adults are a good candidate for this procedure. Well, that's great. That's good to know. It's a good start. I want to keep track of this information. And one of the big things about LiquidText, one of the key ideas behind it is helping you gather and organize information from your different sources so you can bring the important things together with the structure and organization that you need. So I'm just going to take this point right here. And actually, I don't need the medical prerequisites. I'll just pull this out. So I'll select this and I'll pull it out into my workspace and attach it like this. So notice what I've done. I've taken important information, pulled it out so I can start gathering from all different sources. And of course, you notice that big arrow over on the side of this excerpt. If I touch that, it takes me right back to the source. So you're never more than one touch away from the context of all the notes that you've taken. All right, well, this is great. But notice it mentions see figure 1 for a more detailed algorithm. Well, figure 1 is a couple pages down. I could scroll to it, but then I'm not going to see the text. I'd really like to compare the text with the figure. Well, that's pretty awkward. But again, LiquidText is really about helping you see the important things together. So I'm going to take 2 fingers and I'm going to squeeze the document together like this. You can do this with a mouse, of course, as well, but in this case, I have my iPad, so I'm just using my fingers. So I use 2 fingers, squeeze the document together, and now I can see the text and the figure at the same time, so I can compare them. It's incredible. So this figure looks like it's pretty useful. I want to bring this out as well. So I'm just going to select this figure, pull it out into the workspace, and attach it to my other notes. So again, there's the idea we're taking different pieces of information, aggregating them together. We have images, we have text, whatever we need. All right, well, that's good. But now the question is, now that we have this algorithm, was our patient actually a good candidate? So to find out, I'm going to go to the patient medical record, right? So again, I went back to my little documents list on the left, click patient medical record. And so here we have it, patient Arlene McCaffrey. We go down. What's the deal with Arlene? All right, well, it looks like she has diabetes, hypertension, and of course that arthritis in the left hip, as we know. So let's take a look at that algorithm. And so the first thing we see is she under 65? Yes, she is. Immune compromise? No. History of carcinomas? No. High blood pressure? Uh-oh, yes. So it looks like she actually is not in the don't use category, but she's not in the safe either. She's in the closely monitor category. So that kind of suggests the physician might have had a point, but we need to do some more investigation. So I'm going to start by taking a little note here. I'll click this little text box button here, and I'll add a little text box. I'll say our client is in the closely monitor category. Okay, I'll just connect this. Excellent. All right, so again, it's looking like the physician might have had a point, but let's do some more investigation. Let's find out a little bit more about what the physician did and see if it's possible that he made any mistakes along the way. So let's go back to our documents list over here, and let's go to the depositions. And here we have the surgeon's deposition transcript. Really, really helpful. And so I'm going to move over a little bit to the left. I'll make another little text box. Now you'll notice I have 2 different ways of making text boxes. You can either right click or long click, depending on whether you have an iPad or a desktop machine. Or I can, of course, use the little text box button here. So I just use these interchangeably. So in this case, I'll create a little text box. I'll say how the surgeon performed the procedure. Lovely. The iPad knew I was going to write that. We'll just tag this in red as well. Here we are. All right. So now we go over to the surgeon's deposition transcript, and then this is great. And you see I've already highlighted the key points from it of the key steps the surgeon took. but I really want to see the flow of how each step flows into the next and see if there's anything that looks like it could potentially be an issue. But how am I going to do that, right? There's all this different space between the different points. There's so much, there's so many gaps between it. It's hard to see that bigger picture. But again, LiquidText is about helping you to see that bigger picture, helping you to bring everything together. So I'm going to tap over on the top left, I'm going to tap Highlight View. Highlight View is a really special feature of LiquidText that lets you just pinch the document to bring all of your highlights together. Squeeze apart a little bit to see more context, squeeze together to see more highlights at the same time. So if I want to know a little bit more about this one, I can just squeeze my fingers around it and see more detail, and then squeeze together to see all the highlights again. This is really unique and really powerful. And if you don't have, and I'm doing it again using my fingers, but this works just as well, quite beautifully with a mouse or a touchpad. So now let's find out a little bit about this. So first of all, what did the surgeon do? Well, first the surgeon took the stem cell culture and started preparing it. You have to grow the stem cell culture to begin. Obviously, this whole procedure and everything is all fictional. So we pull this out and let's attach it over here. Then they prep the patient for surgery. I'm going to actually use the auto excerpt button. You'll notice it says auto excerpt here. That is just a convenient thing that pulls excerpts out for me, so I don't have to bother doing it myself. Let's see. They did a blood pressure check of vitals. Pull out an excerpt. We performed arthroscopic incision. Okay, that makes sense. They inserted a dissolving joint spacer. Okay, we'll excerpt that as well. Oh, but then this is interesting. Then the attorney doing the deposition says, did you do anything before that? Well, that's fascinating, because that means that some of the following answers, some of the following steps come before the ones I pulled out. Well, this is one of the great things about LiquidText. We make it really easy to rearrange the order of things as opposed to how they are in the document. You can arrange them in the way that makes sense for you. So we'll put the dissolving joint spacer a little further down here. Instead, we'll pull out the point about drawing the bone fascia, removing the synovial fluid from the joint. We'll attach these guys together, and then we have our dissolving joint spacer. See, so again, I rearranged the order to be the order that makes sense for me and in the work I'm doing. All right, then apply the ICM matrix gel. That's pretty important. We'll let the gel set for 15 minutes. All right, I have a feeling that's going to be important. We discovered a small bone spur on the femur. Okay, pull that out. Finally, they applied the stem cell culture and then closed up the patient. Well, on the surface of it, I don't see anything that looks weird or troubling, any indications that there were problems or anything like that. So let's though take a look how the procedure is supposed to be performed. See if there's any inconsistencies between what the physician did and what the physician was supposed to do. So to do that, we're going to go back to our little documents list here, and we're going to go to Galaxidrin product info. Galaxidrin is the stem cell system that was being used in this case. So we'll open the product manual, and here we have it: Telenova Biosciences, Galaxidrin, osteoarthritis stem cell treatment. Scroll down a little bit, and here's the overview of the application process. So let's take a look through this. So we see, first you do patient pre-op, they did it, prepare the bone fascia, prepare the cartilage, prepare the joint, apply the ICM matrix gel. Okay. Leave the Galaxidrin matrix gel undisturbed for 15 minutes. Looks like that's really important. They did it though, according to the physician. Right here, left at 15 minutes, so nothing wrong there. Remove the excess, apply the stem cell treatment, and close up the patient. Well, from on the surface of it, it looks like the physician followed the procedure to the letter. So I don't know, this is really a tough problem. But I think LiquidText can help me here. What I'd like to do is I'd like to take a look at, go back to our documents list and see if there's anything from the FDA phase 3 clinical trials of Galaxidrin that might suggest maybe someone else had a problem similar to this. I don't know. Let's go regulatory bodies, phase 3 trials for Galaxidrin. Okay, let's open this up. So what I'd like to do is see if there's any information here about other folks in the trial or folks in the trials who had inflammation. So I want to do a search for inflammation. Well, LiquidText makes doing a search great. I don't even have to tap the search button. I can just start typing INF, and of course it completes it for me. Hit it. See, it gives me different options for what I can do with this word. And I want to search the document, hit enter, and it does a search. Well, this is great. And just like with highlights, I can pinch to bring all of the search results together. This is actually, again, one of the more striking features in LiquidText, because this way I can effectively pivot my document on a word or a phrase. So if I want to find out more about this instance, I just squeeze a little bit apart here, see the details, then squeeze back together. Want to find out a little bit more about this one, squeeze apart, then squeeze together. But in this case, the one that we're interested in is here, because this particular note says something really, really concerning. It says there was a case where a physician only applied the ICM matrix gel for 2 minutes instead of 15 minutes. And in that case, there was joint inflammation and a failure of treatment. Well, that's actually pretty important. So even though, so the surgeon says, he left the gel on for 15 minutes, but this looks like it might be related. So I'm just going to take this, select it, and pull it out as well, and just maybe mark this in red and put it nearby. But again, the surgeon says he left it on for 15 minutes. So what could be happening? Well, you know what? Why don't I go back to the deposition transcripts, and maybe instead of looking at the surgeons, let's take a look at what the nurse said. Lead nurse deposition transcript. Okay. We'll just go over here. And again, just like with the physician, I want to see the bigger picture. I want to see how each step flowed into the next. And just as with the surgeon, I already highlighted the key steps the nurse described. So we'll turn on highlight view again and squeeze the document. All right, bringing it all together. And so as I look through it, at first, it looks very reasonable. We get over here and we see this section here talking about the ICM matrix gel. Let's dig in a little bit more. So I'll unsqueeze the document right over here. And we see right here, the nurse says it. As soon as the timer hit 15 minutes. Oh, and then they ask, how precise was the timing? And the nurse says exactly 15 minutes. Look at that. Well, it seems like they did this all right. But just to see if there's any inconsistencies, I want to compare what the nurse said to what the surgeon said. How am I going to do that? Again, this is one of the things that LiquidText is great for. I'm going to take the surgeon's deposition transcript, drag it out, and put it up next to the nurse's deposition transcript. Now, I happen to be doing this on an iPad, so it's kind of convenient to have these arranged vertically. But if I was on my Mac or my Windows machine, I would go and I'd probably set to arrange these horizontally. So now I can literally see these guys side by side. But again, on my iPad, it's a little bit easier to do it vertically. All right, excellent. So now I look through these and, is there anything here that looks at all concerning? And for the most part, everything looks fine. But I do see something that looks a little bit concerning. There's something here about shaving off a bone spur. And the surgeon says after 10 minutes, they discovered a bone spur and shaved it off. Well, the nurse agrees, also says it was 10 minutes, but the nurse says something else very interesting. The nurse says they flushed out the joint with saline. Well, they're supposed to leave the ICM matrix gel on 15 minutes before touching it, right? And then they're saying they shaved off a bone spur and cleaned the joint out after 10 minutes. Well, if this is true, maybe that's what happened. Maybe they washed the ICM matrix gel out before it had cured. All right, well, this is huge. So I need to keep track of this information. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out this little excerpt here and attach it. This one definitely deserves to be read. I'll also pull out the point from the surgeon where he says in his own words that they did this about 10 minutes after applying the ICM matrix gel. And because there's this important connection between two documents that LiquidText helped me to find, I want to capture that connection. And again, just like we talked about at the beginning, one of the things that we really try to shoot for with LiquidText is not only to help you discover connections, but to capture them. So I'm going to use my pen here, and I'm going to draw an arrow from the first document into the second document. Just like this. So now look what I've done. I've created a live ink link crisscrossing between my different documents. And so later, when I close this, I can always just tap this little link and it reopens the second document and brings me right back to that location. So this is actually one of the most powerful features of LiquidText. You can connect anything to anything this way. And so what this means is you can kind of start creating your own little personal mini internet on top of all the content you're working with. all the connections that you see, all the relationships you discover between your own thoughts and the original content. Okay, well, that's great. But now I still have a question, right? We have this information suggesting that the physician might have washed away the ICM matrix gel prematurely, but we don't really know, like, can saline even do that? Is ICM matrix gel even vulnerable to saline? We need to know a little bit more. So let's go back to the Galaxidrin product info. Let's go open that product manual again. Is there anything here that suggests, that this could really be a problem? Well, first of all, we see leave the Galaxidrin ICM matrix gel undisturbed for 15 minutes. All right. Well, again, this does suggest that, that we're on the right track here. We'll pull this out, make this bright red. But here's the question. Does spraying a little bit of saline count as disturbing it? I mean, is ICM matrix gel even vulnerable to saline? How do we find that out? But you know what? I see the materials safety data sheet here in our documents list. So I'm just going to open this guy. And right here, ICM matrix gel safety data sheet. And so they have a lot of information here. But I think the one that we need, look at that right here, solubility in water, very high. Well, that's pretty important. That pretty much, that changes everything. If the solubility in water is high, then spraying a bunch of saline solution into the joint would certainly wash it away. So let's take this out and attach this. This is going to be critical for our case here. All right, so now I think we have a pretty good picture of what's going on. So I'm going to make a little text box here and kind of summarize what we found. So the surgeon washed away the ICM matrix gel after 10 minutes before it was cured. And this definitely deserves to be read. So now we have this nice setup in our workspace where we have all this different information, but this little note that we just made is actually really closely connected to this stack of information and this stack of information. I'll just move this stack a little bit. In case you guys don't know, you can always double tap an excerpt to select the group that it's in, and then you can move that whole group around. This is a handy little feature. Now, in this case, I want to show this relationship between this excerpt and these two stacks, or I'm sorry, this text box and these two stacks. And so what I'm going to do is just like before, I'm going to go to ink and I'm going to draw a line just like this. And look what it's done. It's created two live ink links between two different things in my workspace. And again, just like with the documents, these actually work. These are live. So I can tap one end and get to the other end. So if I had a complex, large project here, I could always tap one of these links to see what it connects to. Now, one of the other great things about these ink links is that they can crisscross between the document and the workspace. So for example, if we go back to the lead nurse's deposition transcript here, and I want to really emphasize a connection between a certain aspect of what she said with the saline issue, I can actually draw an ink link from the document into this note, and I can write saline. My messy handwriting notwithstanding, notice what we've done. We've created a link between the document and the workspace. And so I can gather up these links. I can have as many of them as I want here and just tap to get right back to that point that relates to the saline solution. Wow, this is great. So now I've built this whole network of information here. I've gathered all my notes from a lot of different sources. I've discovered connections, I've captured connections, but now it's time for me to share this. How can I share all this? Well, for folks if the people I need to share it with have LiquidText, like let's say in this case, it's the judge, right? If the judge has LiquidText, then that's great. I can tap share and just tap send LiquidText file. Now, in the coming months, probably early next year, mid next year, we're going to be releasing some features so you can just invite someone to your current LiquidText project and share it with them that way. But for right now, you can just tap send LiquidText file and send an LT proj over to the other person. But what if the judge doesn't have LiquidText yet? Well, you can also send a PDF file, or you can send a note, your notes outline. In this case, notes outline is what I want. So when I tap this, look what happens. LiquidText takes all of my highlights from all of my documents and all of my notes in the workspace and combines them into a single nice linear document. I can tap export, hit another app, and tap Word. And it brings me right into Microsoft Word. Well, Microsoft Word doesn't seem to be in a very good mood today, but you get the idea. All right, we'll go back to LiquidText. Actually use apps that work. No, generally Word works great with this demo. But you get the idea. You can send that document right over to Word, edit it, refine it, polish it into the exact final form, the linear form that you need to send off to your collaborators. Now, this is kind of the end of the main part of the story, but I want to show you another couple things before we start going into questions. So first of all, this was a very, very simplified project, of course, because this is just a demo. In a real project, you would probably have, you could easily have hundreds of documents, tens of thousands of pages, and easily you could have thousands and thousands of these excerpts here. So one of the things that we've added recently that we're really excited about is tagging. So for example, let me just show you a little bit about how that would work. So let's say that in a couple of cases, we think the surgeon did the right thing. So I'm going to tap tags here and write review for the tag category. And for the name, I'll tap correct. And we tap add, and look at that. It brings up these nice little tags attached to our excerpts. Now, let's say in this case, we think the surgeon did something wrong. So I'll type review, it completes it for me, which is nice. And I'll tap mistake. And I'll make this bright red, of course. And now it adds that. And likewise, so I can select this excerpt, and I can just even start typing correct. And notice LiquidText knows that maybe I'm trying to apply the tag review correct. So I'll just tap yes, that's what I want to do. And that's great. And so now what I can do is I can do a search. And I can do a tag search for anything with a mistake. We'll do that in the workspace, hit enter, and look at that. It immediately makes it clear where my excerpts are that involve that tag mistake. And if there were a bunch of them, I could just jump back and forth between them. So it makes it really easy to give you another way to find the information, organize the information that matters to you. Okay, so this is the end of our live demo. We'll take questions in a moment, but one thing I want to do before then is we'll go back to our little slide deck here. One of the thing we just added that we are so incredibly excited about, and maybe you guys have heard about it, is our new syncing. And to tell you a little bit about our syncing, I would love to give you a live demo, but it's pretty much impossible to do that with Zoom. So I'm just going to show you a little video demonstrating it, and I'll just talk you through it as we go. So this is our new real-time sync. It's about being able to use multiple devices at the same time. So of course the syncing works, not in non-real time as well, but the exciting part is in real time. So here we have a person using LiquidText on their desktop and their iPad at the same time. And so notice they can do things that make more sense on a tablet, just using their tablet, right? So they might start by, on the big screen device, they start organizing their notes, dragging information, looking at all of their excerpts at the same time. In fact, you see they're using the same sample project that we just did and organizing it all on the big screen. But then there's some things that make more sense with a tablet, right? Like writing freehand ink. It's very hard to do all this on the same machine. And so we said, you don't have to. And so notice as you start drawing, as you start doing things, everything updates and rematerializes on the other machine within about a second or so. And so what you can do is you can start even using the desktop to compare, bring up multiple documents at the same time. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to start creating links on one machine and follow them on another. So we create the link on the desktop, and then we go over to the iPad and we can follow the link. So you have these two machines really working in harmony. And so the idea behind them is as different steps in your workflow require either more of an inking component or more of a large screen component, you can just really smoothly transition from one to the other. You can basically use both machines at the same time. All right, let's see if we can get to the next slide here. Excellent. So with that, thank you all for watching this. Let's now take any questions.
Okay, this is Stephen again. I'm going to be our moderator for questions, and I encourage you to please open up the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen and ask any questions you might have. So first question we're going to ask has to do with importing images into a LiquidText file. Is it possible to select multiple pictures in the gallery and import to such a new file? I've tried before, but it seems I can only add one picture at a time.
That's a great question. Thank you. So right now, you can create one project or one document composed of many, many pictures, right? So you can select to import one, then select to import another, and select to import another, and then say, okay, now I'm done with my new picture-based document. I don't think we yet have the ability to select a bunch of pictures all at the same time and say import these all together, but you can one at a time import your pictures again to form one document. If this is something that would be important to you, definitely please write to us afterwards. Let us know a little bit about your workflow and that you need this, and we'll keep track of it, and maybe hopefully be able to add it in the future. And this is generally the principle. So like when folks if you guys have feature suggestions for us, those are the most invaluable thing in the world for us. We absolutely love that. Like all the major changes we've made to LiquidText and the way the product has evolved since it launched has really been heavily driven by the conversations that we've had with all of you. So what helps us the most is the more you can tell us about why you want a feature, right? Your context, your workflow, I'm a student, I need this, I'm an attorney, I need that. Explain how you would use it. That helps us a lot to kind of put it in context, understand where it would fit, and how many other people might need it. So please definitely write to us with that.
Okay, same user has noted that he's using LiquidText Enterprise in the past and tried having two documents shown side by side, but nothing happens. Has that been fixed?
Definitely, if you're noticing a problem with showing two documents side by side, definitely contact our customer support at liquidtext.net. There shouldn't be any problem with that. I will tell you that until just recently, LiquidText was only on the iPad and the Mac were only able to show multiple documents stacked vertically. Side-by-side stacking has only become available in the past couple of weeks. On the PC, it's been available for a year, but on iPad and Mac, it's only been available in the past couple of weeks.
Okay, so should work now. Okay.
Yes.
Next question. Is it possible to make a summary of a PDF and export it as a Word document or Markdown with headings?
Well, depending on what you mean by a summary, yes. So we'll just, if we go back here, for example, we'll just go back into the app and iOS seems to be in a bad mood right now. Let's just open this guy up here and I'll show you an example of what I mean. So like we talked about before, if you go to Notes Outline, it will basically do exactly that. So it's not Markdown, it's simply, it's a docx file. But I think that should do what you're talking about. In terms of headings, we don't have a hierarchical heading system yet. So, but any excerpts that have been organized together into a group, such as this, it will take and include those in your Notes Outline file as a group. So see, it'll say object group over here, and then include all the excerpts that are a part of it. Now, let me emphasize, if you feel like if you want something that more explicitly includes a hierarchy, right? Where you can say, this is the heading, this is the subheading, this is the subheading, and things like that. We're actually talking about adding some things like that. If that's an important workflow for you, please write to us right away. Tell us a little bit about what your use case is, what your need is. We're really interested in that.
Okay, next question relates to difficulties in importing web pages. Often import of a web page fails, i.e. what I saw in a browser is not what I see in the PDF in LiquidText. For example, a news story on Firefox converts to a PDF with a generic message from the news organization. Would it be possible to have a new doc from clipboard option? This would let people copy exactly the text they need from the web and then put that text into LiquidText. If this is not doable, what is the solution to the web page problem? Great question.
So I assume did this user happen to mention if they're on which device they're on? I assume iPad or Mac.
Not mentioned.
Okay. Well, we don't support web page import yet on Windows, although we were hoping to. So if you're on iPad particularly, so one of the challenges to importing a web page is there's kind of no great inherently functional way of converting a web page into a PDF. So we use some mechanisms to try to, take the best shot at it. Basically, we tell the web page that we're printing it, and that's how we convert it into a PDF. Now, if it so happens that this web page isn't well written and doesn't really know how to print itself well, then the result is going to be not great, right? I would recommend a couple things. One, a lot of browsers will have an export to PDF function. In some cases, they might be able to use some different tricks than we can use, and they might be able to get you a better PDF. In another case, there are some services that have dedicated their whole lives to converting web pages to PDF. You might, you can do a quick search, find a service that maybe does a better job for that particular one. The third thing is, though, you can actually just select content and drag it right into LiquidText right from your web browser. So we'll see if I can do this for the demo here. And let's see if we can open Safari. And let's say we go to Wikipedia. Let's see, our fine state of New York here. All right, and we go to New York State, and let's say we select some important text here, and we can actually just drag this right into the workspace like that. So we do actually work pretty nicely with the web browser. And at least in many cases, we're able to make the little backlinks work. So if you weren't pointing to if the browser wasn't on the New York State page, you just tap the little link button and it'll take you there. But again, if you want something where you can specifically create a new document by copying and pasting text, rather than just dropping it into the workspace, we don't support that right now, but again, we'd love to hear any info about your thinking and your thoughts with regards to needing that.
Okay, we have another user who has a technical issue associated with using a product called the ELO DMS. I presume it's document management system in the App Store. He comments that in previous versions, he could check documents out from ELO DMS, but not in more recent versions. So doesn't know if this is a LiquidText or an ELO problem. Yeah, go ahead.
I will just say quickly, we have not touched anything in our document import export mechanisms since we came to version the big release of version 5. My guess is it's either an iOS 15 issue or it's an ELO issue. I would definitely recommend reaching out to their support.
Okay, we have another question as to whether LiquidText is planning on adding an erase partial pixels to the erase tool.
We've thought about that. It's a lot of work and very few people have asked for it. So right now it's not on the roadmap, but definitely let us know and let us know your thoughts. And if a bunch of people ask for it, we can certainly add it to the roadmap.
Okay, we had another user who asked a question about how to use the sync function. So I presume that question got asked perhaps before the demonstration. And the most important element is you need to subscribe to our subscription service, LiquidText Live, to enable the sync function. It does not operate in the standalone client version.
Yes.
So I will call that one answered. Now we have another user. It looks like a technical support issue. Doesn't particularly mention the platform, but the comment is 2 documents, medical books, doesn't work fast. It gets hanged. So I'm presuming they're having a difficulty with 2 fairly large medical books that are either scanned or loaded in. And I'm not quite sure how to give you more information.
For technical support issues, I would definitely recommend contact support at liquidtext.net. In fact, we can just put up some of the contact info. But generally, LiquidText is really designed to work well with huge documents. We have folks working with 40,000 pages of content, multi-thousand page textbooks. If anything isn't working for you, definitely reach out to our support. Sometimes these big documents have nuances and complexities. That's not necessarily the size per se that's the problem, but it's something about how they're encoded, something about the way the images are set up. We'd love to hear about it so that we can, hopefully identify whatever's wrong and fix it or walk you through a solution.
Okay. Another user asks, will links work in the exported file? i.e. Word, also, i.e. click a highlight in the exported Word document and the corresponding PDF document pops up at the corresponding paragraph?
That's a great question. We do not have that between Word and the PDF document at this point. We do have it if you export a single PDF document of your workspace or of your LiquidText project that includes both your documents and your workspace. What will actually happen is those exported PDFs, if you tap on any of the items in the workspace, it'll take you right to the page of the attached PDF that excerpt was taken from, right, or that it links to. So the PDF export, we have it. The Word export, we do not support that right now. One of the things that we're thinking about doing is having our Word export include links back into your LiquidText project so that it points to, because pointing you to the original PDF could actually be hard. The PDF could be in Dropbox. It could be nowhere. It could be something you converted from a web page. So what we're thinking of is just including links in the Word document itself that take you back into LiquidText. We're still toying with that. It's, we don't have any concrete date for it yet, but if that's something that would be important to you, we would love to hear about it.
Okay, another user asks, is there a way of syncing between iPad and PC without going through the cloud and LiquidText server? This is for security reasons.
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're thinking of some kind of a direct client-to-client sync. It's a really cool idea. We do not support that right now, but what we do support is on-premise installations. So if your organization is interested in getting LiquidText for a bunch of folks there, we would love to talk with you guys about getting you an on-premise installation so that you can have LiquidText running on your servers in your data center and not have any security concerns that might go against policies around using a third-party cloud service.
Okay. Jane asks, if I have a new iPad, what's the best way to transfer LiquidText contents from the old to the new device?
So if you have a new iPad, it depends a little bit. If you are using LiquidText with our syncing service, which I would strongly recommend, your best bet is to just install LiquidText on the new iPad, log in with your LiquidText account, and hit sync, and everything will magically transfer. If you're not using our syncing service yet, then I would recommend using Apple's iCloud backup and iCloud restore. So do an iCloud backup on the first machine, do an iCloud restore on the second machine. Check and make sure everything moved over correctly, and you should be good to go as well. But that one has a little bit higher overhead, but they should both work for you.
Okay, another user asks for a feature. How about hierarchical headings? Very nice if we can export the article book headings, sections, chapter, excerpt, etc.
Yep. So yeah, this is very similar to related to the question from earlier. So you're not the only one asking this. I would say we actually have a good number of people who've contacted us and are talking about having an interest in a little bit more structure in the workspace. We're right now, as I kind of alluded to before, we're right now thinking about exactly what that means and how we want to do it. So I would just say, please, contact us, give us a little bit more information about what it is exactly, what your use case is and what the workflow is you're thinking about. And hopefully we can deliver that to you. But this is something we're actively working on right now.
Okay, next question. Is there a way to work with ebooks in LiquidText?
Ebooks, unfortunately, that is not something we really support right now. Ultimately, we do want to support ebooks and we want to support a lot of different formats of content. But for right now, your best bet is there's a lot of services that'll convert an EPUB into a PDF. And for right now, I'd recommend that as your best solution.
Okay, how far off is the ability to deep link to workspace excerpts from other apps via a URL, please?
Yes, just like the comment I mentioned a minute ago. Yeah, this is something that we've had some folks asking for. Like I said, this one, we don't have a concrete timeline for this yet, but we're thinking about it. I would say, if you haven't contacted us already asking for this, please contact us asking for it. You can either go through our customer support or, or ping us on Twitter. We're about to open up a new community for you guys as well, where you can tell us about it. And you're always welcome to write to me directly, but definitely request it with as much context as possible. And that will help, speed it up and give it a concrete date and get it on our roadmap.
Okay, next question is, why does the pen tool deselect when you draw a circle around an item on a PDF and drag it out to the workspace?
Yeah, that's a great question. That was a very intentional design decision, because it's kind of a long story. But if you don't do that, there would be these cases where, excuse me, there would be these cases where someone starts dragging, and then they stop for a moment and then go to drag again, and they would end up drawing because it would be still in ink mode. So this is something that we kind of had to make a trade-off here. For the folks who are just getting to know LiquidText, if we kept it in ink mode, it would get super, super frustrating as they kind of position an excerpt and then go to move it a little bit more, and now they're drawing on top of it, which is really weird. Once folks got to a really high expertise level and were super comfortable with keeping it in ink mode, it might actually be more efficient, but it would just really screw up people's habits when they're just getting to know the system. So we opted to set it up like this. If this is something that you're finding really frustrating, it wouldn't be crazy hard for us to add an option to let folks who are comfortable with that switch to that mode. But we would definitely want to hear from a few people asking for that before adding that in.
Okay, next question. Can a project with many excerpts, 30 to 40, generate a very big project, 400 megabytes? Do you know why some projects become quite big?
That's a great question. Usually it's not going to be the excerpts. It's generally going to be the documents, right? So if you import a 400-page PDF, 400 megabyte PDF or PowerPoint file or something like that, then your project is going to be about the same size. Basically the way LiquidText works is an LT-proj file, or just the database that we have on your machine, contains your original PDFs or whatever format, actually other formats we convert to PDF, contains your original PDFs, and then a database of the excerpts and links and all those things. Generally, the database of the excerpts and links and things is pretty small. If you're noticing that, as you're creating excerpts, they're getting really, really large, there was a bug at one point in our Windows version where it was, under certain circumstances, possible for excerpts to be captured at too high a resolution. And in some cases, that can end up making the database larger than it otherwise should be. But we corrected that a while ago. If you're still noticing any problems like this, please definitely contact our support.
Okay. I'd just like to make a comment while I've got the floor here. A number of you have asked whether or not we're going to be coming up with an Android version of the app. So I'll let Craig address that.
Yeah, great question. Ultimately, yes. Ultimately, we plan on being on every platform. Ultimately, we want to actually bring LiquidText out as a web app as well. I can't give you a concrete timeline yet, but we're talking with folks and thinking about different strategies for how we could get that out. So I would say, definitely contact us. Let us know it's something you're looking for. The more demand we hear from folks, the more that's going to speed it up on our timeline. But yeah, it's definitely something that we do want to get out.
Okay, we've got one user who's concerned about a number of bugs, has commented about problems that they've had. It's a fairly long post, but I'll read you the core. One example reported: dialog to delete for documents is actually hidden when the left-hand documents panel is collapsed. There are a few others, like searching from home having several issues and basically not working on iOS 15. Can you comment on those? Yes.
So first of all, I would say that be sure that you're using the absolute latest version of LiquidText. So when iOS 15 came out, it did break a few things in the app. The latest versions should be totally fine. If you're using LiquidText Enterprise, we're going to be getting you an update for that one shortly. If you're using LiquidText Consumer, just go to the App Store. Be sure you have the latest and greatest version. If after that you're still seeing any problems, please reach out to our customer support as soon as you can.
Okay. A user asks, is there any way to control the order of the pages when exporting in fitting to one column style, Windows 10, open paren, close paren? I use Canvas with border, but they seem to be going randomly and even trespassing over my other borders.
Interesting. The page order should be pretty much determined by, just starting from the top and going down kind of column by column. If you're finding that it doesn't seem to be doing that, the workspace export has a lot of subtlety and nuance to it. The danger of subtlety and nuance is that there tend to be more corner cases where things might not behave as we expected. If you're finding a case like that, definitely reach out to our support. Our Windows team is amazing people, and they'll be very, very happy to look into it and see if we can figure out what's wrong for you.
Okay, next question. Do references export also with or without links? Source of the exported note highlight, i.e. title of PDF, comma, page 5, ...
Yes. So in the, if we go back and we look here at our, it's getting annoying having two things. If we look at our notes outline, you'll notice right at the bottom of each of these, it has the document. It has the source document where it came from. So yeah, that should be supported. If you're thinking of something different than that, like maybe controlling the citation style or anything of that sort, again, please let us know.
Okay, well, I have the floor. A number of you have asked about the availability of this presentation and the Q&A recording later. We will be sending out links to the recording later on today. So yes, we will be providing that, and you will receive an email containing the link later today. Next question. I have several LiquidText projects on iPad. Can I reorganize them in different folders to get a better overview of the LT projects?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You can reorganize them. So if we go here, close the app, you can, of course, easily create folders. We have a new folder button on the top right. And if you want to move things, you can simply tap edit, select the ones that you want to move, select move to, and select the folder. Now, we know a few of you have told us that's a pretty clunky way of moving things around from folder to folder. We agree. We're planning to hopefully soon get you a more modern and slicker way of moving things around from folder to folder. But for right now, that should support it.
Okay, we're getting close to the end, so we have a twofer on this one. So two questions which relate to the same thing. Are PDFs I import into LiquidText saved? Can I delete them from my cloud or storage of my Mac or iPad? And the second question was, do PDFs duplicate every time I import a document? So they are related questions.
Great questions. Yes. So first of all, yes, they're saved. LiquidText store everything that you import into LiquidText. We assume that the original source may or may not continue to exist. So we make a copy of it into your LiquidText database. At the same time, right now, yes, if you import the same file twice, then you simply have two copies of it in your LiquidText database. One of the things we've been thinking about is having a more general kind of sort of like semi-document manager functionality in LiquidText, where you can just import hundreds or thousands of documents into the app, into a common central repository of the app, and then just pull out documents into different projects as you need them. So there wouldn't be that kind of duplication, and so that notes and highlights you made on one document could easily be available across many different projects. We're still thinking about and toying with that. There's no concrete date for it, but if it's something that would be a high priority for you, definitely let us know.
Okay, and the last question. I bought LiquidText Pro on the iPad. How do I link the license to a Mac?
If you bought LiquidText Pro on the iPad, then that is a separate product from LiquidText Pro on the Mac. You would need to go on the Mac and buy LiquidText Pro there as well, unless you bought a bundle package. Though at this point, I would recommend the best solution is, I would say, just go with our, especially if you want the syncing and you want the cloud backup. Our subscription LiquidText Live service is probably the best bet for you. You get on all your devices, and if you bought LiquidText on LiquidText Pro on one of your devices, we give you like 3 months free towards your subscription. So that's definitely going to be a recommendation for you.
Okay, so that pretty well wraps up our presentation for today. And I'd like to thank you all for participating. As I mentioned, we will be sending out the links to a recording of the presentation. I'll also mention that we're just kicking off our LiquidText community forum, which is a discourse server, which will be devoted to questions and community around the LiquidText product. The participation on that forum community is by invitation only, and all of you will be receiving invitations later today as well to join and participate in the community forum. I will comment that it is brand new. You are the first group of users who are being invited to participate. So content may be a little slim right now, but that's your job. And we'll be interacting with you and fleshing out and providing additional information. But this is another opportunity and forum for communicating with each other on best practices, on resolving questions, and additionally communicating with us. So thank you very much for participating. Until the next time, thank you very much for joining LiquidText.
Thank you, everyone.